Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. This is going to be my War Within Destruction Warlock DPS guide for both Diabolist and Hellcaller. In it, we're going to be covering tier sets, secondary stats, Diabolist and and Hellcaller talents for single target, AOE, Cleave, rotational tips, rotations in single target, as well as AOE, and basically anything needed along the way to play Destruction Warlock in the War Within. Now, I will say we're not going to go over embellishments and certain things here like trinkets because they're still not fully implemented in Sims, and they're going to be changing, almost guaranteed at this point, over the next 2 weeks until the raid releases and likely when the raid comes out. So I would highly encourage you for embellishments, even like talent builds and stuff. I'll have links to these talent builds down below. You'll see them as like single target cleave. I have a paste bin link down there as well. That paste bin link will be updated for the course of 11.0 and all that with builds if they shift a week from now, 2 weeks from now, so on and so forth. On top of that, my website, kalamazi.gg, is up here. It should be, it's pretty much up to date currently for launch, for all talent builds and all that. There might be a bit of a problem with hero talents being shown, but we're getting that worked out. But either way, the website, the paste bin will both be up to date over the course of 11.0 and all that, if things do indeed change in this guide. Week Wars add-ons, links to Twitch and Discord down below. My website as well has them also under all the guide sections if you want them. They're all for free for you guys. And yeah, let's get into tier sets and secondary stats. All right, when it comes to tier sets and secondary stats for Destruction Warlock in the War Within, Season 1, Narrow Palace, and all of that, your 2-piece for Destro says, Incinerate crit strike chance increased by 20%. Conflict rate crit strike chance increased by 25%. So actually pretty strong when it comes to just giving you raw additional crit strike chance. And this is, to clarify, this is not crit strike damage. This is raw chance. So you're gaining 20 and 25% respectively for each ability as far as raw crit strike chance is concerned. The 4-piece builds upon the conflict rate bonus here. When conflict rate critically strikes, which has a 25% increased chance here just from your 2-piece, your fire damage is increased by 5% for 6 seconds. So there's a handful of talents here that, do synergize with this in a sense. I mean, you've got Burn to Ashes with Incinerate, you've got Fire and Brimstone with that. A handful of things here and there. Some builds I've seen experimenting with like Fire and Brimstone and Burn to Ashes at M+. I'm not playing it currently, but I will say Destro out of all 3 specs has, I would say, received least attention when it comes to like playing it in beta and M+, playing it in M+ and beta, I should say, and just like AoE Sims in general, because honestly, it was really strong for a week, as we know, and then it got obliterated, and it's just undertuned, and probably the worst of all 3 right now, but that could very easily change. It likely will change, honestly, with it being that low before the raid comes out and Blizzard coming in and tuning certain things. Now, when it comes to secondary stats for Destro Lock in the War Within, off the bat, like always, I would highly encourage you to run your own sims. Raidbots.com, top gear sim with different gems and enchants taken into account, haste, crit, mastery, reverse, all that. Doing that will run all the combinations for you and give the highest output for your character. My gear varies from yours, which means my stat priority will vary from yours. Now, if you don't want to follow that, the general order I would follow would likely be haste, crit, mastery, and then burst. Haste, haste over crit, basically equal to crit, then crit equal to mastery, and then basically verse. But honestly, that varies a bunch. I wouldn't take that for, wouldn't take that as gospel or whatever. I run your own sims because in the end, that still could change with profiles not being done. And realistically, there aren't any hardcore set in stone secondary stat value like, lists from best to worst anymore because gear varies so much. I might want a bunch of haste and crit, as like my general best 2 stats, but when I have so much, it devalues haste and crit to a point where mastery and verse gain more value. And at a certain point, a mastery verse piece might overtake a crit haste piece. So that's why I encourage you to run your own sims and raid bots, top gear sims. If you don't want to and just say whatever, haste, crit, mastery, verse, you can follow that. But no, you're likely leaving some damage on the table. Let's look at talent builds. Alrighty, so getting into single target and cleave talent combinations for Hellcaller and Diabolist Destruction. We're going to start here with Hellcaller, which is currently the highest simming hero talent combination for Destruction in single target, and AoE is a bit closer, but both have similar but also different damage profiles of AoE. So when it comes to Hellcaller, as we know from looking at affliction guides and all that kind of stuff, Malevolence is your cooldown for Hellcaller. It's a minute cooldown. Wither replaces Immolate for Destruction. So comparatively to Af, where it replaces Corruption, it is Immolate for Destruction, which is pretty strong because Immolate has a cast time on it. Wither does not. So your Immolate is essentially instant now via Wither. Malevolence works the same way. Haste buff, it gives Wither stacks. They basically become, you know, what do they call it? Not acute, they call it collapsing, right? Isn't it collapse is the wording on that? Yeah, they collapse. How it works, Wither went through, you know, seeds of their demise. When it reaches 8 stacks or a mob reaches 20% health, it basically becomes acute or collapses and starts reducing its stack count, but doing damage whenever it reduces a stack. So this gives, whenever you pop it, 6 bonus stacks to every single Wither you have active. It gives you, I believe, a 6% haste buff, could be 8, one of the two, as well as doing initial damage to targets that have Wither on them on a minute cooldown. Very strong. Other abilities here, buff certain things, crit damage increased, Wither damage increased, so on and so forth, all that. Some utility here, Curse of the Satyr, Zevran's Resilience, all that kind of stuff. Pretty interesting. But getting into the actual class or spec tree over here. So honestly, it doesn't really change a whole lot or at all for a single target, whether you're playing Hellcaller or Diabolist. Two different builds here, playing the exact same tree and single target. The difference here when it comes to Diabolist is you have Touch of Rancora, which whenever you summon a Pit Lord, a Mother of Chaos, a Big Mommy, or an Overlord, they bring a demonic art proc with them. It doubles the damage of the next Chaos Bolt or Shadow Burn in single targets. If your bolt hits for 1 million normally, it's hitting for 2 million when you get this proc, and it reduces the cast time as well. Now on top of that, the demons bring their own abilities here. Infernal Bolt from Mother of Chaos. Overlord empowers your pets for your pets when he's active and past his active time. Pit Lord also brings a Ruination Meteor with him, just like Demonology. It empowers your Chaos Bolt to summon imps. It will indeed summon an imp for destruction by playing Ruination. And still, also on top of that, a lot of big cleave damage when it comes down. It's not even bad in a single target. It's just strong, solid all-around ability. Mother of Chaos does cleave, Pit Lord does cleave, and Overlord does cleave with their own abilities. Her being Chaos Barrage, him being a Fellseeker, and him being a big axe swing, pretty sure. Besides that, I've seen both Cruelty and Infernal Machine being played here. Because we're playing Reign of Chaos, which we get in a minute here, I'm opting to play Infernal Machine. It could be Cruelty in the long run. Not really sure, but we'll see where it goes. Now getting back to the spec tree, once again, Hellcaller and Diabolist, same thing. Nothing changes here, right? Going into the tree here, once again, like Affliction, every single point in the Destro tree is 1 talent point. Like everything is 1, right? There's no 2-point talent nodes here. So you are required to path into Rain of Fire and essentially Cataclysm to get into other single target nodes here and all that. But honestly, you really don't leave much on the table either way that you would want regardless, right? Heading in here, Rain of Fire, you're taking Cataclysm here. You're going to cast Cataclysm from what I've seen. Whether you're playing, as far as Hellcaller is concerned, you're going to cast Cataclysm. Obviously, if there's more than one ad spawning or active, you can do that. But in single target, you're going to cast Cataclysm from what I've seen. If your Wither is going to fall, you want to reapply it with Cataclysm. But it shouldn't fall that often because you're getting Soulfire procs that do indeed reapply Wither, so on and so forth. But you don't cast Cata on CD. From what I've seen, it's only being cast if Wither's going to fall. You can reapply via Cata. Either way, not a huge deal regardless. But looking at both builds here, Roaring Blaze is over here. You've got Backlash here, Indiscriminate Flames giving you backdraft increase to damage of next cast by 5%, and a crit strike chance increase to your Incinerate and Soulfire. A lot of like modifiers to cast times or crit strike chances or damage amps in the tree. Indiscriminate Flames, Scalding Flames, Immolate damage increase, right? There's even more heading down here. You've got Ashen Remains, you've got Explosive Potential giving you a shorter cooldown on Conflict Rate. Keep in mind, your tier bonus increases the crit strike chance of Conflict Rate with your 2-piece, and your 4-piece, whenever, what is it? It's Conflict Rates basically gives you a 5% damage increase, shorter cast time, casting them more often, right? Now, pathing down more into the tree here, playing Summoner's Embrace, Infernal into Reign of Chaos. These are both very close. Crashing Chaos and Reign of Chaos, from what I've seen in Sims. I've seen like about 1,000 DPS disparity between the two. And if it were up to me, I would play Crashing Chaos over Reign of Chaos because it is more consistent. I know every Infernal, I'm going to empower my next 8 Chaos Bolts. That's going to be it. You know, Reign of Chaos has a higher high end, but a lower low end. If you high roll early Infernal spawns in your Reign of Chaos window, it snowballs. You get more shards, which lead to more cast, and more cast of shard consuming spells like Shadow Burn and Chaos Bolt. So you spawn more Infernals, and cycle through your, Diabolist rotation with, Cruelty and Infernal Machine. If you're playing Reign of Chaos, getting those spawns faster and faster. If you high roll an Infernal, early on. If you don't high roll any, or don't roll any at all, dead talent, right? Now, it doesn't typically happen where you don't roll any at all, but there is RNG at the start versus the end. So keep that in mind. It is simming a little bit higher. I'm going to recommend this build here, but it might shift to Crushing Chaos later on. Now, what else I want to hit on here is the Shadow Burn talents over here. Shadow Burn was buffed significantly towards the end of beta. It is worth casting in single target for both builds here, Diabolist and Hellcaller. You cast it on cooldown. This is incredibly strong to execute. It is basically equal. It is certainly worth the 1 shard value compared to Chaos Bolt being 2 shards. Instant cast, fast recharge time. If the target is below 30%, it doesn't die from the Shadow Burn, you get a 5-second cooldown reduction. You're basically spamming this when a target is low on health. Shadow Burn is incredibly strong. Casting it from 100 to 0% in the boss, very strong. Once again, damage increase here. It was buffed by 80%, and then on top of that buff, a week or two later, it was buffed by, I think, 30% again. It is very strong. So you're hitting Shadow Burn basically all the time, everywhere. Bottom of the tree here, Devastation, crit strike damage increase, Destro spells, Soulfire, Decimation, which is, you know, basically gives you nearly a free instant cast Soulfire. It's RNG. Whenever some of your spells, like direct spells, do damage to a target, or I guess technically, whenever they crit, you have a chance to reset the cooldown of Soulfire and make a cast, you know, 80% faster, right? Whenever you cast it, it generates a Soul Shard, reapplies Wither, or Immolate if you're playing Diabolist. Very strong ability on its own. Watch for procs. Chaos Bolt damage increase, improved Chaos Bolt. Over here, once again, crit strike damage increase and Ruin. Embers, giving you Incinerate, extra shard gen. Over here, Power Overwhelming, or Mastery. The final talents here, Ritual of Ruin, Master Ritualist, and Avatar. This is the big green Smolderon that spawns in. Every 20 or 15, you know, shards you spend, spawn him in. He's a big portion of your damage. This is a very good row here. Overall, this is the same thing for Destro, same thing for Hellcaller. Once again, same thing in single target. Now, if I'm looking at playing like a Havoc Cleave base build of Destro, it can be tailored to different things. So I'm going to pull up a Hellcaller build here to a similar extent. Same thing, both Cleave builds here for Hellcaller and Diabolist here. We're going to compare. This is Hellcaller single target. This is what I'm looking at for Hellcaller Cleave. Now, I've pulled a point out of Conflagration of Chaos, and I've pulled a point out of Fiendish Cruelty to go up here into Rolling Havoc and just shift general points around here. Now, likely what I could and should do is throw a point into Conflagration of Chaos to head through here. I've seen builds playing both. I think Conflagration is likely a little better, but I think the main thing here that I want to hit on is that I don't think Rolling Havoc is incredibly strong. If you're looking for like really, if you're in a huge, like just big cleave setting where you want that Rolling Havoc damage increase, you can take that and it's fine, but it's 5% at max stacks, and Havoc is a shorter duration too in Warcraft than it was in Dragonflight. The value seems like it's not there for Rolling Havoc. You might end up playing it, but I'm not a huge fan of it, even in Cleave settings. If you don't want Rolling Havoc, just play Havoc. You can take this point and put it back down here in Fiendish Cruelty. And then once again, fill in the rest of the tree, bang, 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 hit this. There you go. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We're done. And the big difference here between Cleave build and single target, you're moving 1 point. EP to Havoc, or Conflagration to Havoc, and put in a point in EP, whatever you want. Honestly, not a whole lot really changes. And that is that. We're not playing Flashpoint here for Hellcaller, because Seeds can give Flashpoint stacks right here via Black and Soul stacks. Honestly, even for Diabolist, Flashpoint is just similar to Rolling Havoc. Just seems like it's not good enough at a rank 1 talent point. It needs to be like probably 3 or 4% per stack, not 2. This needs to be 2 as well. So that is basically Havoc. Well, Cleave, Destro, and single target Destro for both Diabolist and Hellcaller. Now, when it comes to AoE builds for Destruction Warlock, this is where things shift a bit when you're looking at Hellcaller versus Diabolist. So, Hellcaller still has that strong profile of malevolence and all that. Nothing really changes here. When it comes to the tree here, though, so we're playing Cataclysm. I put a point in Havoc. We're not playing EP. We're not playing Conflagration of Chaos or the Shadow Burn row anymore. Now, that is because Cataclysm applies Wither to every target that is hit by Cataclysm. CDF, Channel Demon Fire, extends the duration of Immolate or Wither. On top of that, you have Raging Demon Fire and Demon Fire Mastery. Channels faster, does more damage, all that. I think this synergy and this toolkit between Cataclysm applying Wither and giving you basically permanent Withers with CDF feels really good. You're not having to go back through manually reapply Withers like you do with Affliction and Vital Taint. You can just say, hey, I'm gonna Cata, start the pull, and just cast CDF on cooldown to extend my withers long enough until Cata comes back around again, and I'll Cata again, or hold Cata for the next pack, and then go in Cataclysm, Rain of Fire, CDF, and extend them all again, right? It feels really good and super synergistic. Now, some builds are indeed playing Shadowburn Row over this and just saying I'll refresh manually, but I feel like it's not really as good. I could be wrong. I haven't played a crazy amount of Destro on beta. It's changed so much, honestly, too. Like, the builds are a little bit experimental. So once again, links down below will be up to date if they change it all, but that's basically that what we're doing here. Now, besides that, we're also playing a point over here in Pyrogenics. We basically pulled Conflagration and EP and went Havoc and Pyrogenics, and then shifted these 3 points over here to this. So these 2 went here, and these 3 went here, and that is basically the build in AoE. Not playing Flashpoint here once again. This does give stacks. Even if it didn't give stacks, it just feels so subpar at this level. I have seen builds playing Fire and Brimstone and Burn to Ashes. That might be something we look into in the future, but as of right now, I don't think it's as good. But we'll see where it goes. Now, shifting gears here to Diabolist, where things get a little different. So we're not playing, do this again here, right? We're not playing Cata. This is Hellcaller. Cata, CDF, all that. We're not playing Cata as Diabolist. We are playing Inferno, which means you have to go in there and manually apply your Immolates. There's no Wither for Diabolist here. You have to go in there and cast Immolate that has a cast time on it on a handful of mobs. To a similar extent, we're playing Havoc, we're playing Pyrogenics here, playing Shadowburn, playing Blistering Atrophy, Confederation of Chaos, no EP here, and everything else is, you know, basically the same. Now, I mean, if you really didn't want to play Shadowburn and Blistering Atrophy here, you could just pull these points and go into like straight up Rolling Havoc, pull Shadowburn, and put in EP or something like that. This is also a little experimental because things have changed a lot with Diabolist over the last few weeks and all that, but the Diabolist profile doesn't have that Malevolence cooldown. What it does have, though, are these really strong pets. Mother of Chaos, Pit Lord, Ruination, once again, empowering your Chaos Bolts to become Ruination Meteors, which land, do a lot of splash damage, summoning a Pit Lord as well. He cleaves, Mother of Chaos, Big Mommy, she cleaves, Overlord also cleaves. Playing Rain of Chaos with that strong AV profile in Inferno, different from what it is in Dragonflight. Inferno now makes your Rain of Fire cost 2 soul shards, not 3, and has the damage increased tech to it. So that, you know, constant standing in Rain of Fire shard that you had with Inferno and Dragonflight is gone. They just cost 2 shards now. So it feels similar, but different, and not as like degen in a sense if you're looking for, you know, a bit less degen play. So, you know, there's that. Links to all the builds down below. Get the pacement in my website as well if you want for the updated builds. And yeah, let's look briefly at rotations. Alrighty, so when it comes to Hellcaller Destruction in single target, the opener for both really does not vary a whole lot. It really doesn't vary at all, honestly, because you're applying the exact same talents for Diabolist and Hellcaller. Now, if you're playing Hellcaller, you're going to hit your Malevolence every single minute. If you're playing Diabolist, you're basically just going to have demons spawning in. You're going to have the Pit Lord spawning in, which will empower your Chaos Bolt, turning it into a Ruination. You're going to have the Infernal Bolt from the Fell Mother of Chaos spawning in, giving you 3 shards whenever you cast it. And the Overlord just spawns in, does damage, and leaves, basically. But the opener in the general Spender rotation is pretty much exactly the same thing. So we're going to look at both here quickly and just try and, you know, lay it all out for you guys. Destro is very simple when it comes to a single target. So we're going to do Hellcaller first here. Now, once again, Malevolence being a thing you want to hit every minute, and yeah, basically just general Hellcaller stuff. Now, we are indeed playing Soulfire as well as Shadowburn. Shadowburn has been buffed significantly. It is worth casting on cooldown in single target, whether the mob's at 100% or 0%. It is a very good ability. It's a very good ability. So we're going to head in here, say the boss is being pulled. We're going to precast Soulfire to kickstart our damage. We're going to precast this. We're going to then go Conflagrate, Shadowburn, Summon Infernal, pop Malevolence, Trinkets, Potions, whatever you want here, Shadowburn, Conflagrate, Chaos Bolt, a Conflagrate again here, Incinerate, you can Shadowburn again here, and then basically just keep doing what you're doing here. You're going to cast Incinerates and Conflagrates to generate shards, going to cast Chaos Bolts to dump them and all that, cast Soulfire here, we got a proc, which will reset our Wither cooldown, cast Shadowburn, cast Chaos Bolt, a Conflagrate, cast a Soulfire, going to cast a Chaos Bolt, and a Shadowburn here, and honestly, this is basically Destro. There's a bit of RNG when it comes to certain things. I didn't mean to cast Rain of Fire there. You don't cast that in single target, just fat fingered it, that's okay. There's a bit of RNG when it comes to Soulfire resets, which is right here in my bars. Now at times, Soulfire procs, it's just RNG. It'll proc a handful of times back to back. It'll feel really good. Other times, it won't proc or reset at all, and you're basically playing a weird half-dead talent. Welcome to RNG, welcome to Destro. It is what it is. But besides that, just casting Shadowburn on cooldown, casting Conflagrate, Casting Chaos Bolt. Refreshing Withers if I need to, which is about now. I know I have Malevolence coming up right now as well. So what I'm going to do here, pop Malevolence, Shadow Burn, Conflagrate, got a Soulfire proc, got to cast that. Chaos Bolt here. Shadow Burn it up, Conflagrate, Incinerate, launch a Chaos Bolt here again. That's basically it. Now, when that Wither was falling there and I reapplied it manually, what I could have done is cast Cataclysm. Do that. Cataclysm, if you cast it, will indeed reapply Wither, the same as it does with Immolate. The only time I've seen when it comes to casting Cataclysm in single target is when your Wither's going to fall. You can then use Cataclysm to refresh the Wither. Typically, it doesn't really fall very often because usually you're getting Soulfire procs enough to maintain the Wither. But either way, at that point, from what I've seen, it's worth casting Cata to reapply your Wither versus just straight up saying, hey, I'll refresh it, naturally by just hitting Wither on its own. Now, when it comes to Diabolist, we're going to shift gears here really fast. It's the same build. Just going to change talents here. Actually, let's do this. Let's change builds. Go like this. Okay, well, we'll wait 2 seconds. It's fine. Basically, it's the exact same opener and rotation. You're just not going to have that Malevolence basically every minute. Now, Infernal is 2 minutes long for both specs. So the way Hellcaller works, you got Infernal with Malevolence, on pull. A minute later, Malevolence by itself. A minute later, Infernal and Malevolence. Diabolist doesn't have that minute profile. It just has more consistent damage with, once again, Mothers of Chaos, Big Mommies, Pit Lord spawning in, Overlord spawning in, giving you their effects, which is a pet damage increase, an Infernal Bolt, or a Ruination Meteor. It's more consistent damage. Not as high when it comes big burst, but not as low either. Not as high as, not as low. It's a bit more consistent because demons are constantly spawning in, right? So when it comes to the opener, honestly, like we said, pretty much the exact same thing. I'm going to get rid of these stacks here. So we're going to end up precasting a Soulfire. Kickstart our damage here. We'll also apply Immolate, Conflagrate, Shadow Burn, put the Rock, the Infernal down. I'll Shadow Burn again, Conflagrate again. I should have popped my trinket there. It's fine. It's okay. Begin casting Chaos Bolt and Shadow Burns is basically it. You want to pop your trinket right after your Infernal, so you get basically a max buff on every single ability you're casting. It's Shard Consuming, Chaos Bolts, Shadow Burns, so on and so forth. And once again, at this point, you're just casting Incinerates, generate shards. Conflagrates do the same. If you can, conflagrating into a Chaos Bolt is a little better, but not the end of the world if you can't do it. Casting Shadow Burn here. Mother Chaos spawned in. Actually got an empowered Infernal Bolt there that gave me 3 shards. Casting a Chaos Bolt here. Chaos Bolt here. I'm going to cast Cataclysm to reapply this Immolate here because it's falling. Reapply that. Didn't get a Soulfire proc, unfortunately, but it's okay. There's a Ruination proc coming in. There's the Meteor right there. Cast a Bolt here. Conflagrate. Bolt again. We'll Shadow Burn. And once again, there's a Soulfire proc, but that's one of the lesser streaks of Soulfire RNG, where at times you get procs back to back to back, other times you don't get many at all. That's just sort of how it is. But yeah, besides that, Destro is basically just casting, maintaining your Immolate or your Wither, if you're playing Hellcaller, just casting Conflagrate on cooldown for the most part. If you cast it, try and cast a Chaos Bolt afterwards. Casting Incinerates to generate shards, Conflagrates, and basically keeping Shadow Burn on cooldown. And at the same time, weaving in abilities like this, which give you 2 shards from Infernal Bolt that was nerfed from her spawning in. But giving you additional shards, you have a Diabolist. Once again, Pit Lord can give you big Ruination Meteors, which happens right about here after this Bolt cast. There it is. There's the Meteor. That's basically it. It's not incredibly complicated. If you played Destro in the past, it's the same build as Spender we had before. Conflagrate, Incinerate, maintain Immolate, Chaos Bolt. You're just casting Shadow Burns now, and you get Soulfire procs every so often. It's not too bad. Actually pretty fun. Let's look at it briefly in AoE. Before we get into AoE, I actually want to hit really fast on Havoc usage. It won't be a long part of the video here or anything, but when it comes to using Havoc, which you're using in Cleave-based settings, Havoc right here, basically duplicates spells on a second target at 60% effectiveness. This will also copy shard value, all that, like if Conflagrate right here, is giving you a bit of shards. Whenever you cast it, 5 shard fragments. If you cast it in a Havoc window, it will give you 1 whole shard. 10 shard fragments, which is 1 shard. Soulfire, to a similar extent, gives 1 shard whenever you cast it. If you cast a Soulfire, which I'd only cast if you get a proc, but if you get a proc with a Soulfire in a Havoc window, it'll cast 2 Soulfires, giving 2 shards. The same works for Incinerate. You can apply Withers through Havoc, all that. Even Chaos Bolts. You can cast Chaos Bolts and will launch 2 Chaos Bolts, right, for the shard cost of 2. Now, if you're using Havoc in a heavy AoE setting where you're spamming Rain of Fire over and over and over, quite often basically all the time in AoE like that, you'll want to use your Havoc to generate shards and then use those shards on Rain of Fire. So for example, I have 4 targets here. Let's say we're going into a pack. I'll put up a Cata, whatever. But we're going into a pack here. I'll cast Rain of Fire. going to put up my Havoc, and I'm going to cast Conflict right here. Conflict right again. Now, I could cast Chaos Bolt here if I was in like 2-target Cleave or whatever, but I'm going to use those shards to cast Rain of Fires. Cast Incinerates, Cleave a Soulfire right here. Rain of Fire. Conflict right. Rain of Fire. You can see the shard gen coming in is double essentially because I'm cleaving 2 spells on those mobs, so Havoc is up. So that leads to increased shard gen, more Rain of Fire cast at AoE, so on and so forth. Now, if you're in a setting where it's like 2 targets, like here, for example, let's say this is like 2 spread bosses or whatever, and you want this Havoc basically with Chaos Bolt and all that, you can just put up Wither either beforehand or afterwards, depending on your timing. Put up your Havoc. Honestly, if depending where your shard count's at, you just cleave Chaos Bolts. Chaos Bolt Conflict Rate, Chaos Bolt Conflict Rate, Chaos Bolt. If you're playing Shadow Burn, when I hit it here, got a Soulfire proc, launch 2 Shadow Bolts or 2 Soulfires. It will replicate whatever spell you cast, basically. I mean, obviously it won't replicate Rain of Fire, but you can use it to build shards towards Rain of Fire. If I'm in a Havoc Cleave based setting like this, I want to cleave Chaos Bolts, I want to cleave Shadow Burns. If I get a Soulfire proc, I want to cleave Soulfires. If I'm in a mass AoE setting, I want to use my Havoc more so to build shards so I can cast more Rain of Fires faster. Essentially doubling my shard generation by casting Conflict Rates and Incinerates through this Havoc window to generate more shards to cast Rain of Fire. There's a difference. Pretty easy to feel out. AoE, Rain of Fire. 2 target spread, Chaos Bolt Cleave, Havoc Cleave. That's it. Let's look at AoE rotations. All right, so when it comes to your AoE opener here, when you're looking at playing Hellcaller, this is the build playing Channel Demon Fire with Cataclysm. Cataclysm does apply your withers to every target that it hits, whether it's 4 or 40. It'll apply wither to basically all of them. Channel Demon Fire with Raging Demon Fire, whenever you cast it, extends the duration of all your withers, or immolates if you're playing immolate for whatever reason, and gives you essentially permanent withers when you're playing this build, which feels really good. Really synergistic, and honestly, damage-wise, it hasn't been that bad. Like, Destro has a pretty good damage profile for AoE in both Hellcaller and Diabolist. It's hard to say which one's ahead more. Hellcaller is more like CD based. Diabolist is just like, yo, I got big demons coming in, Ruination Meteors, all that. So we're gonna look at both here rotationally, and we'll see where Sims go in the long run. You know, guess what you want to play then. So the tank's running into the pack here roughly. Rounding it all up, we're going to go Cataclysm right here. I'm going to put my Infernal down, pop my trinkets, whatever I got. Put a Rain of Fire down, cast Channel Demon Fire. Look at the extensions here on the durations. Very exciting. Havoc, Conflict Rate, Rain of Fire, Conflict Rate, Rain of Fire. Incinerate a little bit here for some shards. Rain of Fire, Incinerate, Rain of Fire. Got a Soulfire proc there. We can cleave that for 2 shards. Really sick. And just spam Rain of Fire here, honestly. That's basically it. I have CDF again to cast, which is permanent. Once again, Wither right there. Extensions coming in. I have Cataclysm in 4 seconds. And look at the Wither durations here. They're way past Kata. So I can Kata again here to reapply. That's max Pandemic there as well. Besides that, once again, just casting Incinerates, casting Conflict Rates to build shards here. Havoc into a Conflict Rate to build shards. Rain of Fire. Incinerate. Rain of Fire. Cast CDF for extension. All that. Cleave a Soulfire. Conflict Rate. Rain of Fire. And Rain of Fire. You can see I have Cataclysm and CDF in about 10 seconds here. Look at the duration of his Wither. So they're very close to falling here. But if you're tighter with your rotational cast and all that on them, they're basically permanent. Right there. There you go. They fall, and there's Kata again to put them up. So I might have just not hit my CDF for a second or two. But either way, like that gives you basically permanent CDF maintenance, or sorry, permanent Wither uptime with CDF cast and all that. It feels super synergistic. Every minute you can pop your Malevolence for that damage amp, which is like a... Whether you have Infernal to pair with it every 2 minutes or Malevolence on its own, going into a pack and saying, cool, I'm going to go in, thanks for rounding it up, just throw down a Cataclysm, which applies multiple Withers to every mob that it hits. It's not even capped. If it hits 80 mobs, it's going to apply Kata or Wither to all of them, right? So tank runs in, even without Infernal. You can just go Kata, Malevolence, give all your mobs your Wither target stacks here, up to 7. There you go. It's basically about to go to collapse now. See, now they're all collapsing. I spent shards here. They're all ticking down into CDF, Rain of Fire, and you've got a big burst of damage coming in. And that's every single minute with Hellcaller Destruction AoE. Let's look briefly at Diabolist and compare the two. Alrighty, and the main difference here between Diabolist Destro, which we're playing now in AoE, and Hellcaller is that you don't have Wither anymore. Immolate has a cast time on it. Now, you're also not playing Cataclysm, you're playing Inferno, so you have to go in and manually apply a handful of Immolates when the pack's being rounded up. If you want that periodic shard gen coming in from it, all that kind of stuff, then you can cast your Infernos, or Rain of Fires with Inferno, giving you a 2 shard cost versus 3, cast your Infernal, all that stuff, and it's honestly very similar, just not casting Kata and not casting CDF. Now, the cool part, I guess, cool part about having to cast Immolate manually, there's not really much to it, being cool, but like, Cataclysm, the pack needs to be pretty stacked up for it, right? Now, you can apply Withers individually as Hellcaller, but like, you know, I typically when a tank's running around like rounding mobs up, I'm throwing a couple immolates out when they're just being rounded up. So like when they're stacked, I'm already ready to go. So let's say, for example, the tank's running around, gathering the pack up, throwing a couple immolates out. All right, they're all rounded up, cool. Put my Infernal down, gonna hit my Trinket, hit my Rain of Fire, Havoc this mob, immolate this mob for 2 final immolate applications, Rain of Fire. Conflagrate, Rain of Fire. Incinerate, Rain of Fire. Incinerate, Rain of Fire. Infernal Bolt, giving me 2 shards, Rain of Fire, Rain of Fire, Conflagrate, Rain of Fire, Immolate, Immolate, Rain of Fire, Rain of Fire. Pop my Ruination Meteor coming down, Conflagrate. Now, I am playing Shadowburn here. It is worth mentioning that, like, I wasn't playing Shadowburn as the Hellcaller build here, or before, but I am playing it here. Shadowburn is still exceptionally strong. You can definitely want to cast Shadowburn on mobs that are coming close to death, where if they do die, my hair is wild right now. If they do die, you get the full shard cost back from the Shadowburn you cast, and also it resets the cooldown of Shadowburn. You want to cast it in single target, obviously. We weren't playing it as Hellcaller. In, like, mass AoE, I'm still going to spam Rain of Fire here. The pack's starting to fall apart, you know, things are starting to die. I would definitely be shard sniping these, or I should say, sorry, Shadowburn sniping these with Shadowburn effects. It's still incredibly strong, and as long as the mob dies, you get the shard back. Even if you don't, it's still very, very strong damage-wise. But that's where I go with it. Honestly, unlike Hellcaller, you don't have that minute cooldown of Malevolence. What you have is constant pet spawning, and you've got the Big Mommy spawning and giving you Infernal Bolts right here. You've got Pit Lord spawning and giving you Ruination Meteors, which is basically coming up in 10 seconds here, right? There's my Overlord, my actual bonus, who does semi-respectable damage, even in AoE with his bolts coming in. He also gives you Shard Gen. Pit Lord spawns in. Ruination Meteor, his Spellseeker, also AoEs, big damage coming in. It's just strong in general. More consistent damage, I guess, comparatively to, like, Hellcaller's minute Malevolence profile, but honestly, Hellcaller's pretty consistent too. Ruination Meteor cranks, the shard you get from Diabolist is great. Both are similar but different, and honestly, both have felt relatively similar in M+, when it comes to playing Destro in War Within. So thanks for watching, guys. That wraps it up, and hopefully if you have any questions about War Within Destruction Warlock, this guide answered them for you. Now, I have to admit, I'm thoroughly enjoying both playing Diabolist and Hellcaller for Destro. The Cataclysm CDF playstyle with Wither just feels really good as Hellcaller, but Diabolist spawning a million demons, big mommies, pit lords, all that is really cool. And honestly, like, I think Destro flows well, just numerically it's undertuned. Just not as good compared to Demo or Affliction, but that very well will likely change over the next 2 weeks with buffs and nerfs, so we will see where that goes. Once again, my website, kalamazi.gg, as well as the pastebin link down below, will have builds up to date throughout the whole patch if they change. The baseline codes down below, like the single target ones and the cleave ones, do work for when this video goes live, but the pastebin and the website will be up to date and changing if those builds do indeed change. Check those every so often for updates, all that, if those are buffs and nerfs things. And that is that. If you want any weekly wars or add-ons, links to Twitch, Discord, my website down below, you can get them all for free, and the spec guides and website and all that. And yeah, basically there's that. Any week wars add-ons, all you see in this video, they're all for free for you guys. If you don't see any, put it down below and I'll toss it out for you as well as profiles in general. Before we end, also I want to give one huge shout out and thank you to all my patrons for all supporting on Patreon, guys. Like always, thank you all a million times. I greatly appreciate it. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to do what I do, make content for you guys, and you know, just everything, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much for all support on Patreon. If you're looking at supporting at Patreon, should be a link up here, as well as down below in the description. At this point, we're about, let me see, actually just about 18 hours from early access. I'm excited. I feel like for the first time ever, I'm actually not behind when it comes to release. A couple things here and there I forgot about because I'm old. Mentally, I'm 80 years old, and you know, there's that, but I'm excited. 2 weeks, and then we get the actual raid coming out, 3 weeks in Mythic, and I'm pumped, man. You know, we'll see where it goes. There'll likely be a video coming out this weekend after release, looking at embellishments and trinkets and all that once they're implemented in SimCraft, and we'll go from there. All that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. It helps out a ton, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.